What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Water Cooler Talk. My name is Caleb Turner, and I'm a sports writer at KSL.com. It is Sunday, March 23rd. We are in the midst, the dead middle of March Madness. The second round just finished up today, and we are on to the Sweet 16. The good news about being onto the Sweet 16 is that for the first time in a while, a team from Utah is on to the Sweet 16. The BYU Cougars men's basketball team defeating VCU and Wisconsin in the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament to move on to their first Sweet 16 since 2011. And you know what was going on in 2011? Well, that was when Jim Murray was at BYU. The last season, his senior season, was 2011. That's the last time that BYU made it this far in the tournament. 2012 was the last time they even won a game in the tournament. So it was long overdue for both things. And BYU was able to not only win their first game since 2012 in the tournament by defeating VCU by a score of 80 to 71, but also take down a higher seed, number three Wisconsin, 91 to 89. So big results there for Kevin Young in his first season at the helm of the BYU men's basketball program. And no surprise here, if you're looking at who the star was for BYU in those two games, look no further than the heir to the tater tot, Richie Saunders, the great grandson of the one of the co-creators of the tater tot, going off for 16 points in the first game against VCU and then 25 against Wisconsin. But no slouch from other stars on the team as well. In fact, we had a big senior veteran performance stepping up, Fus Traore with 9 rebounds in that first game against VCU, and then Yegor Demon, double-digit points, and then 8 rebounds, 8 assists against Wisconsin. So the projected first-round NBA draft pick showing out on the biggest stage in front of scouts, in front of a national audience. So good for Yegor to kind of peak at the right time, heading into the spring and then into the summer when he hopes to be on an NBA team. And with all that being said, BYU has another game Thursday, 5:09 p.m. You gotta love these ultra specific tip-off times in March Madness. That is Mountain Time. CBS taking on two-seed Alabama in Newark, New Jersey. Sweet 16, here we go for the Cougars. It's not very often they find themselves here, so it's an accomplishment to get to this point. But I'm sure the players, like I mentioned, a couple of seniors on that team, a couple of players that likely will not be there next year, whether it's due to graduation or playing professionally. They want to go as far as they can this time, and they weren't they were not favored against Wisconsin, but it was a bit of a tighter matchup. I think people saw Wisconsin as a bit of a beatable team, and they took care of business there. Alabama, obviously no slouch, coming as a two seed SEC team. Um, but as we talked about with our friend Jackson Payne last week on this podcast, something of a winnable section of the bracket for BYU. You're not facing off against a powerhouse necessarily like a Duke or a Florida. Obviously, those are one seeds, so that will still come if those teams continue to win as well. Duke is in BYU section of the bracket, their quadrant of the bracket. So you're taking on two seed Alabama. So far, it's been kind of a lot of chalk with this bracket, with the tournament. A lot of the higher seeds winning, not as many upsets maybe as we've seen in past years. Not I don't think there's any double digit seeds. So maybe it's a bit of a disappointment there for some fans who like to see those big upsets. But you could still have a team like BYU as a sixth seed. We got some upsets. They already got one against Wisconsin. We'll see if they can get an upset again against Alabama. Speaking of Jackson, the reason he is not here, usually he joins us, especially with it being March and with BYU playing as he covers the Cougars. And it is for that reason that he is not here. He's in between his March Madness trips. He was in Denver, which is where the first two games happened for BYU. And then he is heading to Newark, like I mentioned, where the Cougars will next be playing. So he's in between trips right now, busier than I am, certainly, with travel. So we'll have to wait to get the full road recap from Jackson, his diaries from being on the road with the Cougars. Tell us about what went on inside these the press conferences, inside the hallways of these arenas. Give us a little inside scoop. Hopefully, we can have him on, if not next Sunday, the week after, so that we can get the inside scoop there. Always fun to have somebody who's at the games, right? They can tell us what it was like. So hope to look forward to that in the future. And if BYU continues to move on, an even better story, more interesting and more things to talk about on this podcast. So that's certainly where we wanted to lead off with this podcast. It is March, and as long as it's March and there's teams in the tournament, we're going to talk about the madness. So if you're looking at who to follow there for in-state teams, BYU is the way to go. And we'll see how far they can make this run. As far as other teams this week in the state, we go to our professional teams, of course, and the next biggest story, in my opinion, would probably have to be the Utah Hockey Club, with a bit of a run that they're making, trying to make it into the playoffs. Now, it's not looking as close as it was maybe the last time we spoke. Currently, Utah Hockey Club 6 points out of the last wild card spot behind the St. Louis Blues to make the playoffs. The tough thing with as we get down to the home stretch and being on the outside of the playoff race trying to get in is that it's not just about winning your games. It's about, the teams ahead of you have to lose some games. And that hasn't been the case so far, unfortunately, for the hockey club. There is a bit of a distance there for them to try and make it into the NHL, the Stanley Cup playoffs. But certainly you can help yourself a lot by getting some wins. So speaking of the recent record of our beloved Utah Hockey Club, it's been not bad. Over the last couple weeks, it had been win one, lose one here and there, kind of go back and forth. They've won three out of their last four, with two of those coming on the road. Or sorry, one of those wins coming on the road, which is a big one, at the Vancouver Canucks. The hockey club went 1-1 on their Canada road trip, so they went to Edmonton, and that was where they picked up an unfortunate loss, which was a big loss, a 7-1 loss to the Edmonton Oilers last Tuesday, which is not what you want. When you're trying to inspire confidence and make a run into the playoffs, you hopefully want to lose some closer losses, if not wins, right? This team's had a lot of overtime games, overtime losses, which is like maybe more the kind of thing you want as opposed to a blowout this time of year. But they were able to rest their goaltender after the first period because it had already become kind of a blowout. So there are some positives there. And they went on to come back to Utah, to the Delta Center, and win two in a row against Buffalo and Tampa. 5-2 win over Buffalo, 6-4 win over Tampa. So no problem scoring goals here at home, as has not always been the case in their inaugural season for the Utah Hockey Club. So props to them for playing better at home. I know I read. I hope you guys are all following Ryan Miller's coverage of the Utah Hockey Club. He does a great job game to game. And there were a couple of quotes after these last two home wins, talking about how shouting out the fans, saying this home crowd in our first year has stuck with us through some home losing streaks when they weren't playing as well at the Delta Center, and the fans stuck around and they're still coming out. They're still supporting, and there clearly is a desire, a demand for hockey here in the state of Utah. I saw over the weekend, somebody tweeted at Ryan Miller, Ryan Smith, too many Ryans, Ryan Smith, the owner of the hockey club, about ice rinks in Utah and how there weren't enough, and he was trying to get his son out to go skating, and they were just all full, they were closed. And he was saying that they're really trying to up the number of rinks. One per municipality is kind of what he was saying, if not more. So look for that. As this team takes hold. I know Jackson, when he's been on this podcast, and others have mentioned, you're gonna want to create. There's some work that has to be done to create a culture around the team, the fandom, the lore, if you will. And we've mentioned that a playoff run can certainly help that. But growing it in the community can also help that. If you get the younger generation interested in the sport, interested in hockey, believe me, I've taken my fair share of friends and family to sporting events, and it's a lot more fun if you understand the game as opposed to if you do not. That's honestly a big reason I got into sports in the first place. Was I'd always been around sports. Sports are popular. All my friends played in high school, etc. But it wasn't until I kind of sat down and learned about the players, their stories, the rules, the narratives around different teams, that it really became interesting. So I think we're kind of building that with the hockey club little by little. It's been, I think, almost exactly a year since the rumors and the announcement of that the hockey club was coming here even happened. And way less than that, 6 months or so since the games actually started being played. So props to them and all the people that have been working with that club to get the word out. And it looks like, if they can continue to play strong at home, they've got one more on this homestand tomorrow against the Detroit Red Wings. And if they can pull that off, you go 3-0 on a homestand, you're stacking wins. That's exactly what you want to do before you head out on another road trip to Florida, actually, Tampa, Thursday. So certainly some opportunities to gain some points, gain a little ground in that playoff race for the Utah Hockey Club. On the flip side of things, literally the opposite end of the standings for the NBA would be our Utah Jazz, who lost 10 in a row before winning a game that they probably didn't want to win against the Washington Wizards, who these two teams, I was lucky enough to be at that game. Maybe lucky is not the right word because these were two 15-win teams, as we only have about 10 games left in the NBA season. So you don't want to have 15 wins in March in an NBA schedule. So that was the case against the Wizards Wednesday at the Delta Center. Um, you Jazz and Wizards both with 15 wins. Somebody had to get their 16th win, and it was the Jazz who ended up pulling it out to break a 10-game losing streak. But since that win, they've gone on to lose two more. So well on their way to another extended losing streak, as they have, let's count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, exactly 10 games left in the season. Two more at home, one against the Memphis Grizzlies on Tuesday, and then the Houston Rockets on Thursday, before hitting the road for a bit there against the Nuggets and then Charlotte, before, they don't come home again until April 9th against the Portland Trail Blazers. So catch them here while you can. We'll see if that losing streak extends or if the Jazz can pick up a couple wins. Based on what I saw at these the three games I was able to cover during this homestand, a lot of it depends. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer, but on who's playing, right? If you play who I think are probably the Jazz two best players, in Larry Markkinen and Walker Kessler, the team tends to do a lot better. Now, even in that game, in one of the games that I watched when they did play together, I believe it was against Chicago. Um, Actually, it might have been the Minnesota one. No, it was Chicago. Chicago. They didn't even win that one. But it's because, minutes are limited. The Jazz have become really creative with how they're going about managing this team, managing minutes. Because in my opinion, if you were playing that your best players full minutes, we're talking, 30 minutes out of a 48-minute game. This Jazz team is way closer to around 30 wins, I would imagine, if not a few more, as opposed to a 15, 16 win team. But they haven't been playing Markkinen or Kessler 30 plus minutes. In fact, they caught some flack, as we mentioned, for resting Larry Markkinen because he falls within that. He was an all-star within the last 3 years, so the Jazz got fined $100,000 for resting him. They've been playing a lot of young guys, Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, that are both rookies. And they've had some solid moments here and there. The Jazz love to tout that Isaiah Collier is going up the ranks of the Jazz rookie assist record, obviously held by John Stockton, but Collier did pass former Jazz point guard Darren Williams in those rookie rankings. So he's been getting minutes, opportunities, and he's been getting assists. So that's what you want to see from a point guard. Nonetheless, the Jazz are very set on losing as many games as they can to get the best odds at Cooper Flag, who you can watch in March Madness. Duke played today. Flag coming off an ankle injury and then caught a hand to the eye during this game, so he was kind of winking for a bit of the game. He's taking a beating, but still playing and playing pretty well. At his size, 6'9", 6'10", and his shooting ability, he's able to defend a lot of different positions. This is the kind of guy that, every NBA team wants, that can shoot and can defend. And the Jazz certainly are among those teams that would like a Cooper Flag, as you can see, at Duke #1 seed, and then they're probably going to go pretty far in this tournament. So, if you want proof or reason as to why the Jazz are losing games. It's not too hard. Turn on your TV and watch some March Madness to see the players that they are trying to go after in this draft. And with that, we will move on to our final section of this podcast, which is a little bit of soccer. With Jackson out, I can talk more soccer. He's not a big soccer guy. It's all right. But nonetheless, we do have two professional soccer teams here in the state of Utah. The Utah Royals women's team in the NWSL and Real Salt Lake in MLS. And they are both in season now, early in their seasons, I should add, but playing games nonetheless. And it was RSL who was at home this weekend taking on FC Dallas. They were coming off a pretty big win on the road in Houston, like I mentioned last week. First win in Houston since 2018. So vibes were pretty high. However, ended up being without a few of their key players yesterday against FC Dallas at America First Field in Sandy. Diego Luna, star midfielder, winger, attacking midfielder, whatever you want to call him, away with the U.S. men's national team, playing with the likes of Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Tim Weah, who you might, those names you might remember from the World Cup. I know it's been a little while, but we have another one coming up, so you might want to brush up on your national team names. Diego Luna was one of those, playing for the national team. In fact, today is Sunday in a third place CONCACAF Nations League game against Canada that he provided an assist for. U.S. ends up losing. They lost both games this week. Not a great look for them in general, but nonetheless, Diego did pretty well. So he was not with RSL this weekend. Dominik Marchuk away with the Polish national team, and he will also be gone into this next week as well. Diego coming back hopefully tomorrow. And the surprise was RSL was missing perhaps their most important player because he plays right in the middle of the field and he does a little bit of everything, and that was Emeka Anelli. He was out with a slight back injury, not listed at first on the report, so we didn't really know what was going on, but was not able to play against Dallas. And with these absences, it showed for Real Salt Lake. No goals scored, losing 1-0 against Dallas. But I have to add, obviously, that 23 minutes in, there was a red card given to Ari Peel, a forward on Real Salt Lake, for a challenge, a tackle that was deemed too harsh by the referee after he went to the replay monitor, the famous VAR, video assisted referee, and he deemed it was worthy of a red card, much to the dismay of all the fans at America First Field and the coaching staff and the players. Not very happy. And RSL was reduced to 10 men for whatever that would be, 70 plus minutes for the rest of the game against Dallas. Dallas goes on to score. However, I will add that goalkeeper Rafael Cabral from Brazil for Real Salt Lake saved a penalty against Dallas, which is not easy to do. So shout out to Rafa. He's been certainly one of the bright spots for Real Salt Lake early in this season. In my opinion, I was thinking about it after the game, probably the most stable the RSL has felt at the goalkeeper position since Nick Raimondo retired 5+ years ago now. So that's certainly something to be happy about if you're a Real Salt Lake fan. That's one less position to worry about. So only give up one goal, being down a man, but you also don't score a goal. So pros and cons to that one. However, with that being said, RSL has lost three of their first five games of the 2025 MLS season, not counting their losses in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which they exited quite early in the first round against Herediano from Costa Rica. So it hasn't been an ideal start for RSL. They did get the great streak drought ending win in Houston, but definitely gonna have to pick up some things here over the next couple weeks. They head on the road next to Minnesota before returning on April 5th to take on the LA Galaxy, which is always a big game. RSL beat the Galaxy in the MLS Cup back in 2009, so they've been rivals basically ever since then. And that should be a fun game, a big opportunity for RSL to get hopefully their squad back together, get Luna, get Anelli rather back into the group, and see if they can make a run at the Galaxy and get a couple more wins here in the standings as we head into April. And lastly, as for the Utah Royals, just their second game of the season, ended up losing 3-2 at San Diego. It was a very exciting game though, with the Royals going down 2-0 in the first half, coming back to tie the game 2-2 with some great goals from Claudia Sornosa from Spain. She had a free kick goal. I would recommend looking both these goals up if you have a chance. But it's always fun when a player scores directly from a free kick. You got to curl that ball around the wall that the defenders create, past the goalie, and kind of into the corner of the net. So always very impressive. And she was able to do that for the first goal. And then Mina Tanaka, who I don't know if I've shouted out yet in this podcast, but great offensive player from Japan, just came over to Utah kind of in the middle of last season. But she is a great player internationally, was the MVP of the recent She Believes Cup here in the States, playing against the U.S., against other pretty great national teams with Japan, and was named the MVP because she had 4 goals and several more assists. And she showed a little bit of that magic, a little bit of attacking, playmaking magic in San Diego, finishing off a nice little build-up goal between several Royals players to finish that one off. So it's 2-2 late in the game. I believe we're on the 75th minute, so you got about 15 minutes left. But unfortunately, the Utah goalkeeper, Mandy McGlynn, tries to make a pass out of her own box, and it got stolen almost immediately by a San Diego player and shot back into the net for what ended up being the game winner. So 3-2 loss there for the Royals. They drew in their first game and lost their second game, so they haven't gotten a win yet. But some opportunities coming up. They go on the road to Kansas City next. Kansas City known as a great team, so it might be difficult there. But then coming back on April 11th against the Portland Thorns at America First Field. So if you want a chance to see these players, like I mentioned, Mina Tanaka, Claudia Sornosa, the U.S. Young Female Player of the Year, Ali Sentnor, that could be your time. It's warming up here in Utah. We were, pushing 60 degrees, which I know might not sound great to a lot of you, but for us here in Utah, it's a lot better than 30. And once we get into April, should be looking pretty great as we get into those 70-degree sunny days and appreciate the mild weather while we can before, of course, it gets hot once again in this semi-desert that we live in. So enjoy these days while we can. I know a lot of us are spending some time indoors watching March Madness right now, but some great opportunities to get out and watch these outdoor sports coming up. Soccer, um, obviously not football yet. That comes in the fall. But if you want to get out of the arenas with basketball and hockey, check out some soccer. I'm always there. Come say what's up and see if we can get some more wins for these local soccer teams. That's about all I got for you guys tonight. Hope you're enjoying March Madness. All of our brackets are already busted, so you don't have to worry. You just enjoy at this point. And you can cheer for a local team, even if you didn't have BYU going to the Elite Eight like some of us might have, or even to the Final Four. I know at least one of your teams that you picked did not make it, so just fill right in with the Cougars. Cheer them on, cheer on Tater Tots, the heir to the Tater Tots, and it should be fun as they take on Alabama next. So a big one coming up on Thursday, and we hope to have more of a recap for that game and more coming to you next week. Thanks for sticking around.